Hi grade 5s, welcome to yet another recorded math lesson. Today's title is Creating Equivalent Fractions. Our learning intentions and success criteria are: I am learning to develop number sense so that I can demonstrate an understanding of fractions. I'll know I have it when I can develop a strategy to determine and create equivalent fractions. So I want you to think for a moment, how does this picture show us that 1/3 is equivalent to 2/6? If you need to pause the video to have more thinking time, that's totally fine. So this picture shows us that 1/3 is equivalent to 2/6 because we see that there are 6 hearts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 2 of them are colored in pink. So 2 out of the 6 hearts are colored in. But what we also see here is that our hearts are separated into 3 smaller groups of 2. And of those 3 groups, 1 group is colored in pink, meaning that 1/3 is equivalent to 2/6. I'm going to show you 2 strategies today to determine equivalent fractions. The first one is going to be using counters, and the second one is going to be more useful for you probably in the real world because you're not always going to have counters with you, and that one is multiplication or division. So let's get started with that. So the first one with counters, so anything that you can use where you have multiple colors but many of them. So I'm going to be using jelly beans today, but you could also use maybe lots of candy is really good for this. Maybe Skittles or Smarties or M&Ms. Or you can actually buy counters from the store if you're really interested in doing that. So one way to show equivalent fractions when you have counters on a piece of paper or on a whiteboard would be to color them in or shade them in. So I'm going to shade in 2 here. And just like before, we can now see, because I have 6 diamonds and I have 2 of them colored in, that I have a fraction of 2/6. But if we look at the groupings, 3 equal groups of 2, I also have a fraction of 1/3, and that means 2/6 and 1/3 are equivalent. Okay, another way to do it if your counters are already shaded in and you want to find out what an equivalent fraction would be, we look here and we see 4 stars, so 4 is our denominator, and we have 2 stars that are colored in, so our fraction is 2/6. We can also circle, or I've been doing boxes, to show the different groupings. So we have 2 groups here, and 1 group is colored in, meaning 2/4 and 1/2 are equivalent. Okay, next I'm going to show you with my jelly bean counters. My cat has been trying to move them all over the place, so I just had to set them up for you again. Okay, there's my cat. And there's my jelly bean counters. And we can clearly see right here that I have 3 jelly beans. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 jelly beans all together, meaning that I have a fraction of 3/12. But I've also grouped my jelly beans into 4 groups. Thanks, Odie. I guess we lost one. Let me just grab that, or I'll grab another. There we go. So I have my 4 groups, and 1 group is white. So I also have a fraction of 1/4. Sorry, I had to steal that jelly bean back from my dog. Okay, and let's head back into Smart Notebook. So the next strategy I wanted to show you was using multiplication or division to show that 1/4 is equivalent to 3/12. So we can use division. If we write down the fraction, and let's try and divide both these numbers by 3. And I picked 3 because I know that both of those numbers are divisible by 3. I'm also going to post on Google Classroom your multiplication charts because I know a lot of you like to use your multiplication chart for division. So if I divide 3 by 3, I get 1. And if I divide 12 by 3, I get 4. Meaning that I know 3 over 12 is equivalent to 1 over 4. And it also works the other way if you want to multiply. 1 times 3 and 4 times 3 equals 1 times 3 is 3, 4 times 3 is 12, and so we get the same number again. So take a moment and think about what are some other fractions that are equivalent to 1 over 4. And again, if you want to pause the video while you think, that's totally fine. So some other fractions that are equivalent to 1 over 4, we can find that out by simply multiplying the top and bottom number, or the numerator and the denominator, by any number you'd like, really. Let's try 10. 1 times 10 is 10, and 4 times 10 is 40. So 10 over 40 is an equivalent fraction to 1 over 4. Let's do another one. Let's try, my favorite number is 8, so let's do 8. 1 times 8 is 8, and 4 times 8 is 48, meaning that 1 over 4 and 8 over 48 are equivalent fractions. Let's try another one. 1 over 4, let's try 5, because that's a pretty simple multiplication question for a lot of us. 1 times 5 is 5, and 4 times 5 is 20, and so we know that 5 over 20 is equivalent to 1 over 4. And we'll do one more. Let's do 2. So 1 times 2 is 2, and 4 times 2 is 8. And so we know that 1 over 4 is equivalent to 2 over 8. So question for you, and if you need to think about this again, you can pause the video. Why were there more ways to multiply to find an equivalent fraction than there were to divide? So the main reason is that we try to put our fractions in lowest terms. So a fraction in lowest terms means that the numerator and the denominator have no common factor other than 1, meaning you can't divide them by the same number except for 1. So some rules about lowest terms is if the numerator is 1, the fraction is automatically in lowest terms. So 1 over any number is in lowest terms. Rule number 2 is if the difference between the numerator and the denominator is 1, meaning that if you subtract and you get 1, that the fraction is automatically in lowest terms. So for example, 2 over 3, if we take 3 minus 2, we get 1, and that means that 2 over 3 is already in lowest terms. And rule number 3 is if you can't evenly divide the numerator and the denominator by the same number, the fraction is probably in lowest terms, but you want to make sure you check that one out because sometimes we forget and we can't think of a number that we want to divide it by. So just make sure to check that one. Okay, so your worksheet today is creating equivalent fractions. It's on Google Classroom. It is due tomorrow. Good luck, grade 5s.